that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and beginning. Hello and good evening to all of you on the Unsaid show. I'm so happy today is the third episode. Time goes so fast. I want to welcome my lovely colleagues, and we have over here
Sara Al Maawali.
Hi, I'm Sahar Salmanian.
Hi, I'm Tamsyn Pereira.
How are you feeling, Tamsyn?
Oh, better.
Okay.
Much better.
Happy you're back here.
Yes, definitely.
So today we're actually talking about shame. And we're going to bring lots of faces of shame. We talked before about belonging and about bullying. And this quote that I said in the beginning actually brings two together. So let's go into a little break and then let's go into the serious stuff.
This is Oman FM.
Okay, so I don't know if our lovely listeners know that every Wednesday we put that song on.
Yeah.
And our challenge to you guys is, can you get that clap? I want to tell you a secret. The team can't get it either. We're still practicing. Hopefully, by the end of the segment, we actually get it. But you guys out there, try and remember us by that song and by those claps. Okay, so today we're going to talk about shame. I'm going to say that quote again. And the quote is, shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Sahar, what do you think about that?
I think that's a good definition of shame, because when you feel ashamed, you feel I'm not deserved to belong. Even if people around you think otherwise, you are not ready to accept it, because you have that huge self-doubt about yourself that I did something wrong and I have to be shameful about myself.
That's true. And it's one of those negative words, I think. But today we're going to say also another side of it. So later on. But the moment you hear shame, you feel, I don't know, physically your body goes like
feel
kind of
uncomfortable.
inwards. And you think, oh, you know, it's like a downer.
A heavy feeling.
It is, isn't it, Sarah? I mean, when, like, if I say, shame on you, Sarah,
It's kind of like
I'm attacking.
Yeah, it's like an attack.
It's like an attack. And we probably heard that a lot, maybe, I don't know, as kids. Do you think, have you heard that sometimes, Tam? Do you remember that?
Hear that so often, and even as adults, people are constantly wondering, what will other people think? And I think there's a lot of shame in that, and people are so afraid to get ostracized and, you know, not being accepted into different peer groups, and we as humans are constantly wanting to be liked. So if we're drowning in shame, then there's no going forward.
Yeah. And then the word like shame, shamefully. You know, it's so it's such
It's aggressive.
And
too.
imagine hearing that word as a child. I feel it's, even as an adult, we feel it's heavy.
Yeah, it has
So
so
as
much
a child, you even feel more, and especially when you don't even understand what it is, you know. And usually, even when people say it, they have a certain expression, a certain, and it's very connected with. Can you guys guess with what?
I can guess.
What's
guilt?
Guilt, exactly. But two are totally different.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, shame is about oneself, when guilt could be about something else. So that's why it's more painful. And it's also very connected with culture. Have you guys noticed?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strong. I mean, we're from mixed cultures here, and we've all heard the word, and it's all heavy on us. Let's talk a little bit about culture and shame. Let's go a bit one level deeper today. Okay, so if I was to say, in our culture, it's something shameful to do ... For example, what would you say, Tamsyn?
I was about to say that all our cultures are very similar.
Yes.
And I think it may not just be a cultural thing, it's a human thing for people to constantly wonder what other people are thinking of us.
Yes.
In our cultures, I think it's shameful to set boundaries. That's what I think, that's the biggest shameful thing that people are shunned for.
That's true. Sahar, what about you?
The first thing I remembered, since I was a kid, I used to hear this a lot, that you shouldn't disrespect elderly.
Yes.
Heard
That's my
that
link.
too.
Yeah.
And maybe it has something to do with the other perspective, that
Yes.
shame is not always negative,
Yes.
because it encourages you to be a better person. Or
It
to
depends
do,
also how it's said and how it's told and in what consequences,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
Sarah, what about you?
So I was gonna say the same thing, respecting your elders. So that is one of the main ones that came to mind as well, because that is something I've always heard growing up. Like even when if I'm sitting down and then I see someone older than me walking by, like I automatically have to get up.
Yes.
Say
That
hi.
is yours,
Yes.
or like even our grandparents kissing their heads and their hands. So
yes.
it's shameful not to do that.
True. And I think the people around you also stress if you don't get up. Like,
No,
you know, we'll send Morse code. Move, Sarah, quickly. You'll
they
be
give
in
you the eye
trouble.
contact, like
Yes.
get up.
And then afterwards you'd hear you know, that was very, very bad, and we're ashamed of you. So those words, and I think why we're talking about it today, we hear it a lot in the clinic. The people who come to the clinic have a different type of shame. And I'm wondering, before we start into our next, little break, I wonder if you guys can help us out in this and tell us, what do you think shame means to you? And if you can call us on the number 24949493. I'll say that again, 24949493. If you're in the car, please be careful, because it's very dangerous. I know for sure. So just be careful. But we would love to hear you. If you're at home, if you're by the beach, you're hanging out with your friends, all your friends, why don't you call us in and tell us, what does the word shame mean to you? I think we would love to hear everybody's perspective on this. And let's talk a little bit more until somebody can call in. So usually when we have someone come in, a client, and because we are in this field of mental health, they're usually ashamed of being called mental.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's a word a lot of people say, like, even when they meet us, we said this before, they were like, oh, I don't want to come to you because, you know, I'm not mental.
Yes.
So I think it's with shame. Do you guys feel that with your clients?
I do. And I can recognize shame immediately in my sessions, especially when I hear some certain phrases from clients talking about, you know, maybe how unworthy they are, or how they feel like, you know, maybe I deserve to go through this. I deserve to be suffering, or, you know, being in the situation that I am. And I think immediately I'm just like, okay, there's a lot of shame that we need to work on over here.
Exactly. And that itself is a whole session.
That's a
just
whole-
to, even before you go into the problem itself, right? Sahar, what about you?
Yeah, I have
And I think
witnessed
you
that.
deal with couples.
Couples.
Yes.
Yeah. And beside couples, I have seen this a lot, that clients are worried if they finish the session and in the waiting area, if they see someone, and then they're gonna, you know, remember that this one is going to clinic. And as you mentioned, I'm not a mental, I'm not crazy, I don't need clinic. But I think it's getting better.
Yes, it
That's
is.
something positive.
It is. I mean, before, if I saw someone outside, they would pretend they didn't know me. And I would, obviously, because of confidentiality, we wouldn't. But now people actually come up and say, oh, do you remember me? I'm so-and-so. So I feel the culture is changing, but still,
Yeah.
it's not a taboo. I don't know. It's a bit different from
It's
taboo.
a challenge,
Even
I
stigma.
guess.
The word stigma kind of goes along with the word shame.
Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
it's
It's
still, I don't know.
different,
There's
but-
something a bit different about it. What about teens?
I think it gets passed on a lot. So along with teens and kids as clients, I also do parent counseling, and a lot of times I'll hear parents say, "Okay, you know, when I bring my child in for the next session, how do I let them know that, you know, it's not a therapist?" And I said, "Well, this is not a play area either. They're coming here to learn about their mental health. So we need to be as honest as possible, because if you don't break that shame cycle, then that's just going to get passed on to your child. And what's the shame in actually getting help to feel better?"
And they're not going to share their issues.
Right, exactly. So they're
Yes.
shamed before they even come to the session, because they already think that their parents are embarrassed about what they're going to talk about, right?
I
So
know.
many different aspects to this.
That's very true. And I think the idea of even bringing it up, sometimes people are already, like, I'm sure today when people saw we're going to talk about shame, they were probably like, well, this is, you know, a bit
juicy
intimidating,
topic.
right? It's like, you know, it's like it goes with our dramatic video. Today it actually goes with the video. But again, if anyone wants to share their story, we are ready to hear, and we want to learn from you guys as well. I'll say the number, then we can go into a little break maybe to give people time. So it's 24949493, 24949493. We're waiting for your replies and your stories.
This
So again, we always say how music affects us, and music comes from poetry or from a feeling that someone got. Now in that song, the lyrics that he would say was what I got to do or who I'm supposed to be. And I'm thinking this person was most likely going through something, through a dilemma, and feeling ashamed of how he feels. And I think a lot of people relate to this song who feel also confused or ashamed of their feelings or how they feel towards something or towards a specific topic. Now again, when we go back to the idea of guilt or shame, because it's very thin between.
Delicate.
Yes, and as we said, shame is something to do with me, while guilt is to do with something outside of my body, for example, or around me. When we hear guilt, okay, let's try and play with that word a bit. Then we'll go into the shame. What do we feel? Sara, what do you feel about guilt?
Guilt.
Is it eating a cupcake and I feel guilty?
For me, it's more of like a physical feeling.
Okay.
If I think of guilt, I feel like it's physically eating me up. Not eating the cupcake, but eating me up.
Yes.
I think that's how I feel about guilt. And it's a heavy
But
word, heavy feeling.
what, like, I feel guilty because why did I do this?
Yeah, it's a behavior, an act.
Okay.
Why did I do this? Why did I
external.
say this?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
external.
What about Sahar?
To me, it has something to do with others.
Yes.
When I feel guilty, I feel at the same time regret. And then I think about it, how others are thinking about me after doing that action or behavior.
Yeah. And some people don't feel guilt at all.
Yeah. Well, see, eating a cupcake, I don't feel any guilt because it's a choice I'm making,
Yes.
right? But maybe bad guilt, negative guilt would come from making a choice that maybe I'm intentionally doing it.
Yeah.
But I also have regret, like Sahar said. So
Yeah.
if there's regret attached to it, then what do you do with that feeling of guilt?
You know what? I have a friend, and every time we go and eat and we enjoy the meal, and I'm just talking, this is the lightest guilt ever, of course. There's way more stuff. We enjoy the meal and we finish and we're like, oh, I'm so full. And then she goes, do you feel guilty now? Do you know what you did to your body? I'm like, why do you go out with us? We don't want you with us, please. She keeps on saying, what have you done? You know, after we've eaten and finished, she could have kind of said it when we were reading the menu. But she always has this, and then she laughs, so she knows that we're doing it on purpose. But guilt is an outer body feeling. Okay, shame, you know. I don't know why when I hear shame, I also feel like somebody's like literally, you know, when you watch the movies, somebody's actually hitting themselves, you know, even though there's nothing maybe sometimes, but they feel it. So it's like self-inflict pain, kind of.
Or
that
self-removal, hiding yourself.
Exactly. And maybe it's something that nobody thought would hurt this person, but this person grew up and that thing...
That word, that phrase, that action.
Exactly.
it's
So
tough.
like, you know, there's a lot of cases where somebody will be very tempted to, as a young child, maybe see something and take it and run away with it and hide it. And then an adult will say, aren't you ashamed of doing this? This was really bad. And it's very, you know, it's connected a lot with PTSD, by the way. And we'll talk about that also, that incident, like a story I have about that. But it's connected with it because sometimes it's a trauma that's happened to somebody, you know, and they're, you know, something to do with them.
Have you noticed how shame is usually taught most of the time, right? And people are made to make you feel shameful for doing something, even if it's what you want to do, right? But what about shame that comes in automatically? So when you ask Sara about it, I think it sits with that feeling of anxiety. So it creeps on even before you're made to feel it. So it's there, it exists, and at some point maybe someone's not even making you feel shameful.
Yes,
it just
it's
automatically slips in.
Yeah.
I guess it has something to do with our issues or self-doubts that we have about ourselves.
Definitely, yeah.
So
Thinking
maybe
we don't deserve things.
Yeah.
Good
and when
things.
you do something wrong, an action, a behavior, then you attach that wrong behavior to your being, to your
Yes.
personality.
Yes.
So that's a deeper feeling.
And that's why shame can happen both ways. Other people can shame you, or you can start shaming yourself.
Exactly.
And they're both connected.
And sometimes you might be like traveling, like say you travel to another country and you see something and in your brain you're like, wow, that's really like, does she have no shame? You know, you actually do it. Then you say, what is wrong with me? That's okay. But for that person, not even the culture, that person, it's okay. But for you, because you are in a certain environment, you have certain thoughts as well.
Standards.
And sometimes it's nothing to do with your parents. It's something you can...
Morals.
Yeah, exactly. You on something you have created, and it's grown inside of you. But it also paralyzes you from doing stuff.
Right.
You know. And what I want to do now is I want to flip the story completely, and go into kind of a positive shame, and which is very interesting because usually shame is negative. So if I was to say positive shame, is there a positive shame?
There is.
There is. What is a positive shame?
I think a positive shame is when you're trying to teach someone to do something maybe that is dangerous. Let's say for a child. A child is touching a hot stove. So maybe you don't intentionally trying to shame them, but you're like, stop, don't do that, don't touch that. And then the kid automatically stops.
It's connected with PTSD, with trauma. Literally, again, it's like a traumatic experience that is mixed up with shame in a weird way.
Yeah, because you're trying to teach something, but at the same time, it's also somewhat considered a shame. Like you're shaming someone like not to do something.
Yeah. Or you're with a friend and then she says something and you always put her down, and you know, and then that friend feels, you're always doing this to me, you know, in this group, you're always like putting me down and making me feel shameful. And then you think, but I didn't mean to, but it means to in that person.
Yeah, I generally feel for all the emotions and feelings, there is a message behind them. That's the positive part of feelings, that we can be more aware of ourselves. When we sit with that feeling, when we embrace that feeling, we learn something about ourselves. And it's the same with shame. Like we protect ourselves from doing things that might hurt us or others.
But what if, let's say, there's a couple and one actually does infidelity and goes with someone else, and the other person knows and finds out, but every time she tells the person, or he tells her, let's say vice versa, she just says, yeah, like, what's the problem in that? Or he says, yeah, well, now you know, well, good for you.
Right.
He does not feel
Doesn't feel guilty,
that
no shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is something I always tell clients, that emotions are not the problem. It's how we react to them that's the problem. So if someone has cheated and they don't feel guilty or shameful about what's happened, then you know, you're never actually going to learn, or you're never actually going to heal and move forward. But if a choice is made where a good kind of shame is where you realize that a mistake has been made, you want to make better choices for yourself, and then you go forward and change those things for yourself, I think that would categorize as good kind of shame.
Yeah. And also how we're brought up to look after our parents and the elderly. So a lot of times we say, have you no shame? Why aren't you looking after, you know, you're not looking after your parents, you're not sitting there. I mean, in culture, let's say in culture, that's also kind of a different type of shame, right?
Yeah.
Where you're like, well, I don't care. You know, well, they can, you know, look after themselves. So again, it's very tricky.
It
in a
is.
way.
As you mentioned earlier, it depends on how you say it and how you learn how to respect others, how to think about others with couples. I think that if you don't feel guilty, maybe it's because we never thought about a relationship as two people engaged in that one, and you have to think about your partner's emotion. And you've been maybe self-centered and you only cared about your own feeling. So it has something to do with your thoughts and your belief system as well.
Yes,
That's why I think that when we think of shame, or not just shame, but it also is related to our values and our morals, as Sahar said, and how we view the world. So once we understand that, we can also like relate it to shame and what is considered shameful to us and what is considered shameful to other people.
You know also what's connected to it, but I'll just say our number again, I'll continue. So call in. We really want to hear from you guys and hear what you want to say, because we want to share ideas. We're learning from you as well. And I'm just going to say the number again. I should memorize it by now, but it's 24949493 on 90.4 FM, which you are listening to us right now. Don't change that dial. I think also being shy, do you feel it's connected a little bit with shame?
I do, definitely.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're like, I can't do that. I feel so shy and ashamed. And then it goes deeper. Okay, why do you feel shy? What happened? And it could have a backstory to, well, this happened. And now I'm also ashamed. You know, ashamed of oneself.
I think also the idea of being shy is also seen down upon as like, it's like a bad thing to be shy. And when someone said, oh, you're shy, and then they'll be like, why are you so shy?
Because I feel ashamed,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah,
That would be, or I
that's
feel
true.
guilty,
Yeah.
or I feel
Or-
I don't have self-esteem.
Or I'm worried, what if I do something or I say something or I be vocal about myself and then I be ashamed, I regret saying those things.
And sometimes it's a light bulb, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't be ashamed? Like, no, you shouldn't. It's fine. All these years I thought it's shameful. Like, no, it's not your fault. Or, it's not you who did this certain thing to yourself.
And that's the beauty of therapy,
Yeah.
is when you come, you unpack so much, and then you kind of realize, like, this whole time, like, I could have just been loving myself and showing some grace and compassion.
Compassion,
Exactly. Loving yourself. Exactly.
Yeah.
I like what Sahar said about the assumptions that come from shame. And sometimes maybe no one is going to shame you, and you're doing that for yourself because you're assuming that you're going to be shamed for it. For example, with setting boundaries, letting people know what you want, what you don't want, how you want to be treated. A lot of times I'll see clients who already assume that their elders are not going to respect their boundaries, or they're going to be shamed for it.
Exactly.
And sometimes it just takes that little baby step to start setting a boundary, and then you realize, oh, I wasn't actually ashamed about that,
I'm going to give you the number again because I'm hearing that there's calls coming in, but let's try and memorize this number, guys.
I'm bad with numbers.
No
Come
shame.
on.
I can write
Aren't you
it.
ashamed of yourself? Okay, it's
I can write it.
24949493. 24949493. I know what happens when you can't memorize a number and you're trying to call. It's very frustrating. So we're waiting for your calls and your stories. Some people have the name. It sounds a bit like shameless. Is that connect?
Shameless.
There's a name I used to hear before, and I used to think, doesn't this mean shame? Maybe it doesn't, but I'll tell you guys about the name later on. But this name is kind of connected to this meaning. Again, for me, it's always connected with culture and religion, maybe as well. Because you have all of that inside, and sometimes it's us not understanding. And sometimes it's us brought up a certain way to feel that way, to feel like this is wrong. You should be, and this word should, like these
Should
big
statements.
words, should and you know
to.
you have to, and all of these things stay in your mind. That's why we always say words are more effective than anything physical. Words stay with you. Look, now all our memory is about that. It's not about. I mean, okay, physically something happened to you, remember, but words stay in your system and it grows into this huge tree that literally suffocates you. So if you imagine a tree growing in your system and then in the end it's just blocking everything. And that's how when you shut down and then you feel, okay, you might feel you need help, or you might literally go on in this own world. And we're going to have a little bit of help from Sahar, how to evaluate.
Yes.
But let's take a break and then come back.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yes. Okay, then. So, as we always do, we use music, art, and drama. I want to show you, I know you guys out there can't see the picture, but we're going to explain the picture as much as we can. And if you're watching it on YouTube, which is a very cool idea. You know, today I was like, this is a different era, radio on screen.
Different
Two
options.
things. You can't think I'll just wear anything and go. You have to actually dress up properly.
Good.
Actually look presentable. Okay, so I'm going to show you, and maybe you guys can explain what you're seeing. So basically, this is a woman's face, and the woman's face is covered, her mouth is covered, and it's written self-blame, guilt, fear, shame, emotion, and
Social expectations. And suppression.
when you see this, what do you think? You know what's very interesting? When I was looking for art pieces, for some crazy reason, it was mostly women.
Interesting.
Very little. Like there was, if I would say a percentage, maybe it would be like 70 or 75 women art pieces, like this, faces and bodies, and then men would be like less. It wasn't that many.
I think
I
it
don't
goes
know. What
back
do you guys
to
think?
that, maybe the same stigma that men are not very expressive and that are not speaking up about these things. But I think men go through a lot of the same things.
I'm very,
women go
I mean,
through.
do it later on, do a search. And, you know, I have certain books that talk about things, but today I said, let me just also look. And honestly, it was mostly women. I mean, art pieces of a woman's face, or a woman covering her mouth, or a woman's body, for example. And I think maybe women also have that body shame, right?
Yeah, I think the spotlight falls on women a lot when it comes to shame. For example, if we're talking about abuse as well, usually, you know, we always hear people say, "Oh, what was the woman wearing? What was she saying? Where was she at?"
Exactly.
And why is the blame always pointed at the women and not actually at educating other people, men or women, on how they you know, speak to someone who's a victim of abuse?
Yeah.
So
And I think it's men and women.
Yeah,
Right.
in
But
reality, I guess there
I
is
think
no
it's
difference.
the idea of expression as well.
Right.
They
I
keep
think
it
it's more
inside.
talked about for women than
Yeah.
for men, just like Sara said.
So there's this art piece I want to show you guys, but behind it there's a huge story, and I'm gonna again explain the art piece so people who are listening would understand it. But I want to show it to you, and then I want to tell you. It's called "How Shame Makes Us Sick," and I don't know. It's interesting. I never thought of it as making us sick. It makes us not okay and mental, but this actually says that physically also. So the picture is quite expressive. If you can see, it's literally guys out there. It's a woman. And she's trying to run away, and there's all these ropes pulling her back, but then there's the internal organs showing, which is quite interesting. Okay, let me...
Yeah.
We got a call.
No, I want to show the camera. Oops.
Right. It almost looks like it's hurting her and restricting her.
Okay, yeah, so you see this? It's really pulling her, and it's
Yeah.
pulling all her organs.
When
Isn't
you
that
see the
interesting?
organs, it's like she's transparent.
Yeah.
She's trying to be herself.
And you know what? So this is a traumatic sexual assault left this lady, Lucille, feeling this way. And what she says, I'll just read a bit of it, okay? The body's physical response to shame over time degrades us, okay? It wears us down from the inside out. So again, when we're talking about shame being internal,
Yes.
you know, not external but internal. I know this because the psychological symptoms of shame, racing heart, dry mouth, and all of that, has also brought PTSD to me, and also stress disorder, which I lived with for 10 years after I was raped. So again, people who are sexually assaulted, or all of those, which there is a lot of cases, as there is everywhere in the world, it makes them feel ashamed, which is quite interesting, right? Because this has happened to them. They didn't do it to themselves, but they feel ashamed to the extent they won't talk about it. And this is men or women.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is very
Goes
deep in layers and layers, and I'm sure people out there who maybe heard of this or felt this would probably think, yeah, by the way, I feel the same, because I feel maybe it was my fault.
That's something you hear quite often, actually, is it's my fault. And something we always try to remind our clients or anybody that goes through things that it is not your fault.
Yes.
But sometimes it's hard for people who go through that to believe that.
Yes.
Because even like with certain emotions like shame and guilt, I feel like it creates a muscle memory. That emotion creates a muscle memory. That's how you said, like,
The
it
physical
eats,
part.
the physical part. It
Exactly.
eats you out,
Yes, yes.
and it's quite tough.
And the feeling of it's my fault, sometimes they're told that it's their fault again. So it stays in their head, and when there's a breaking point, they say, because I thought it was my fault. And only then they start opening up and realizing it wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are lots of statements such as, you could have done this, you should have done this, so it's better to take the responsibility because I'm afraid if I say it was not my fault, then they're going to judge me.
Yes, yes, the judging comes in. And it's interesting for humans, sometimes when people say, she said I should have, or I could have, I'm like, sometimes humans don't know what to say.
Right.
They're trying to help,
You're
like,
freezed.
I mean, when you hear something and it blasts in your face, you're like, what's your response? What's your defense mechanism to help this person? You go, well, you know what, you should have, or why didn't you? But they don't understand this is probably adding to the problem, but they don't mean it. They're trying to help as well. So sometimes it's good to learn what to say and when to say it, because most of the time we actually say things that are not right.
Helpful.
Or unnecessary.
Or unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said, culture and society, right? A much bigger picture of how culture and society are the ones that are teaching everyone, generation to generation, to shame anyone who's gone through anything that's actually not their fault. But using factors like you mentioned earlier, like religion or what will other people think, what's, do what your culture expects you to do. All of this is just dripping with shame.
Exactly.
When what you should be doing is, being proud of actually being who you are, as long as that isn't a bad thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because all religions and all faiths and all that actually don't teach it the way we think it. They actually do defend, and just because we don't understand it or we've been taught wrong, but it's all there, it's all written, and it talks about everything that is out there. It's talked about. I would like to go through this little quiz, and then after this quiz, again, let's say the number, and we'll take a little break. So, Sahar, let's give people kind of a tool to use if they feel that they're being
that's
shamed.
a very short questionnaire evaluation. I read the statements for you, and then you can rate out of 10, rate how true the following statements feel for you. I read the statements. The first one, I don't deserve to exist.
Okay, so let's focus on that one. So the idea that I don't deserve to exist. And that happens when you feel ashamed. This is like the lowest pit of all, for example. And then you say from 1 to 10?
Yes.
Okay.
The number. Rate your number. The second one, I am defective.
Okay, I am defective.
That means I am broken.
So I'm useless. I have no use. Yeah, okay.
I am no worthy to be known or loved.
And I think that's what sometimes I think young adults would say that more in therapy, right?
Right, like everything is going against them.
Yeah.
And all these statements that you've read so far all share lack of self-compassion.
Exactly. It's like one big question, actually. Yes.
I am a mistake.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
that's the difference of guilt and shame. That
Exactly.
you attach that mistake to yourself, and then you cannot forgive yourself. If you made a mistake before, you cannot move on from it. To forgive yourself, to give yourself a second chance to be a better person.
And it's me. It's all I am. Just me. It's not, something happened. It's me. Yeah.
I deserve to be abundant.
That's painful.
Yeah, in relationships we see that a lot, right?
And also the worthy. I want to go back to I'm not worthy. I hear this a lot, mostly from young adults more.
Right.
It's because I'm not worthy, or nobody cares about me anyway. If I'm here or I'm not here, it doesn't make any difference, and that's very hurtful to hear. To someone to feel worthless. Yeah, because they feel so ashamed. Yeah.
And the last one, I should not be.
That takes it all, I guess.
Yeah.
I should not be. So after hearing this and these statements, and of course that gets rated from 1 to 10.
Yeah,
and
if your numbers for these statements are higher than 8, then that indicates you're dealing with shame. And maybe it's time to start working on it.
Yes, and it's never late.
Never late.
It's never late. People can change 360 degrees as long as they want to change,
Right.
and they choose that. I'm going to say the number again, and let's see if we get those calls. So it's 24949493. Again, it's 24949493, and we will wait for your calls, and we'll go into a little short break.
FM.
So I just want to say lyrics of what we have heard. You guys most likely haven't heard it, but it's "You don't own me." I just want us to focus on this. Just imagine it in front of you. You don't own me. I think when somebody says that, they've gotten to their last straw. Unless they're being cheeky.
Yeah, particularly back to that picture we saw earlier of that girl being pulled by ropes and trying to run away from it, like, you don't own me.
You don't own me, yeah. And I think this is something we also hear a lot, if it's from male or female, because also female can also be, impulsive and do that for a male as well. Like, you need to do this, you need to do this, and then it goes to, you don't own me, that kind of thing. And with the women as well, like, you don't own me, I'm not your little, as the words say. And it's very scary. As much as we think, it's a song and we sing it, because I always say words are very important. It's very strong to say someone does it, because nobody owns anyone, really.
Yeah.
So when you hear that song, what do you guys feel? I feel so like
kind of like an anger.
Yeah, right? Anger. Tell him. But you feel that way because the way, and this is a very old song that's made again, but the lyrics, let's go through the lyrics. And by the way, you guys, anything we talk about, if it's arts or music or poetry or anything like that, we will put it in our account. And you guys we'll tag the account on the account of the Oman FM, and you can send us in our inbox questions, and also we will post the pictures and the songs and everything, so then you'll get more information. But again, with that sentence, Tam,
makes me angry. It makes me want to go kickboxing.
Yeah, right.
That's what I think of. But even when we say you don't own me, it comes from, like Sara said, that image of just breaking free, doing what you want, setting boundaries, learning self-compassion, doing things because you love yourself. You deserve it.
Yes. Setting boundaries. I like that.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries is very, very difficult, yet very, very important. And I think when you don't, even with your own friends, let's make it even easier. You get gobbled up, get eaten up. Like, I want to and it just disappears slowly, and slowly you lose yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Losing oneself is huge.
Yeah.
It's even stronger than losing someone. Actually, when you lose yourself, you have no control.
Right.
We need a whole episode for just boundaries.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because you can go deep
I have
with
so much to say about boundaries.
Yes, definitely.
It's so challenging. It's like if you don't have boundaries, you are a person with no guards around you, and anything can come in and go out.
Yes.
And you have no control
You have
over
no shield.
it.
Yeah.
Basically.
I like to separate it into internal boundaries and external boundaries. So internal boundaries that I would set for myself is saying, hey, I have this much time and energy. I can't interact with you. I can't go out. I want to, spend time with myself.
But Tam, don't you feel ashamed by saying that?
No.
No shame.
Not.
No shame.
And then an external boundary would be, you setting those boundaries for other people. And it doesn't have to be a harsh boundary. It can be a soft, gentle boundary as well, letting
Healthy
someone know
boundaries.
what you want and what you don't want.
But maybe people say, you don't care. You just think of yourself. And that's, of
it's
course,
not
not
selfish.
true.
It's self-care.
I think it's
depends how you
important
say
to maintain those boundaries too, because sometimes people will come in and out of your space. But it's important that how much effort are you putting in maintaining those boundaries? And it comes with repetition. You must repeat over and over again.
Yes, that's very, very true. And I think also boundaries, and also the word shame, and it's very interesting. I just feel like they're all connected.
Right.
So imagine this person that is feeling all these feelings of being ashamed, of not having boundaries, of not having self-love, of guilt the whole time, feeling owned. That is a lot.
That's why they feel lost.
Exactly.
And they don't know where to start.
Yeah, that's a lot to carry.
That's what leads to physical sickness as well, just like the poster you showed us.
Yeah. And I think that drawing of that lady, which she's the one who actually drew it and talked about it, I think to go to that extent of drawing something like that is a lot. We usually don't connect mental health with physical. We think they're separate, but they are literally the same. That's why we say, I feel sick to my gut, I feel like my stomach hurts, or when I see that I cringe, or I feel anger, but my body is doing all these emotions. So the brain is, of course, as we know, is the headquarters, and sending all these things through our body.
The body.
So it's not a
our
small
body
thing.
reacts because our body is so alert.
Yeah, we would love for you guys, even if you're not going to call today, for you to actually send us information on how you feel, because we want to learn more and we want to know more about how
Your experiences.
exactly
What shame means to you.
exactly what shame means to you. And I think one of the things in this show, Unsaid, is some days are going to be light, some days are going to be heavy, but we are trying to talk about topics that maybe people would not want to talk about, and we talk about it from our experience as in our field.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that would help with the trust and all of that. I'm going to say the number again. So it's 24949493. 24949493. Let's go to a quick break and let's see what we say in the end about how to actually deal with it. Okay. Actually, let's just talk about how we can actually deal with it as well. What would be the solutions? So if you're feeling this, what would you feel?
I want to bring up something, actually.
go on.
I texted a friend earlier and said, oh, call in because we're going to be talking about shame. And he said, oh, I'm shameless. And weirdly, he's being shamed for being shameless, which is a statement that we haven't talked about.
Yes.
When someone doesn't say, oh, shouldn't you be shamed? But instead says, oh, you're shameless.
Yeah. But
What do you
does it,
think
but
about
it's
that?
interesting. Do you think that person is actually shameless, or does he think it's cool to say that, or he doesn't want to deal?
I think it's a label eventually. Maybe it's said with humor.
I think so.
Yeah.
I feel it's a defense
Band-Aid
mechanism.
Yeah.
Yes,
humor.
I think if you sit with this friend, there'll be a lot coming out. Friend of Tamsyn. Yes.
Yeah.
But what would you do?
I think for any emotions, it's good to first ask ourselves, how did emotion in the first place was created? What is the thought behind that emotion? Because
Yes.
I think changing emotions and feelings are possible, but it's very difficult to access that emotion and change it. Challenging our thought is easier than challenging our emotions.
Yes.
So
I
the
agree.
statements we were doing for the questionnaire, I think by challenging those statements and looking for evidences, sharing it with someone, and just not believing it so quickly.
Yeah.
I
And
guess-
getting yourself out. So if this is how you feel, step out, move your body out and just look at it.
From space.
Look at it from far and think, where is the issue? Don't sit in it, I think. And I think with that, one has to always remember there is always time for change. There is always a way out, but you have to actually try your best.
There's
and push
always the
yourself.
support.
There's always a support. And again, we're here to hear you, and you can send us any information. And just to uplift, because today maybe we're a bit, low, let's uplift it by, I want to challenge you guys with that clap.
Oh.
You did not see that coming.
I cannot.
Let's try it, okay? And then we'll go into, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. And maybe we can tell them our, famous sentence that
The
1,
end.
2, 3,
Change
change begins
begins
with
with
you.
you.
Come on, guys, let's try that clap. Let's go.
Sounds terrible.
You can't do it.
Try my
Cancel,
best.
cancel. Thank you, guys. It was a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Bye.
evening.